We are here today with a true Arizona drag racing legend, Chris Thomson. You know, Chris, this is a real treat for me because today I get to interview the interviewer. And you have had an opportunity to talk to some of the greatest people in not only Arizona, but in drag racing period, and especially specializing in the background of Arizona drag racing. A real treat to be here with you today.
Well, it's my pleasure as well, and I feel the same. It's a pleasure. I'm excited that you're doing this. I couldn't think of anybody else that that you're my. If I go to a drag race and I don't hear your voice, it's not a drag race.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, man. That's cool. But you were a great asset to me, and always giving me opportunities to find out what's going on. Your background in drag racing is phenomenal. But let me ask you this: where are you from?
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And
So you're a
many of us,
Zony.
yeah, and like so many of us back in the day, I was born in St. Joseph's Hospital in downtown on Thomas and 3rd Avenue, I believe. And that was like, if you back in the day, you were either born there or Good Samaritan.
How did you get a background in car racing?
My brother was was the first guy. My brother Warner he was the guy. He bought me my first bicycle. Coached me in Little League. He was the best big brother, but he had a passion for cars, and he had a 59 El Camino. And the 59 El Camino had just V8 in it. It was kind of cool, and it had a loud muffler on it. But he had a JC, like most guys had different magazines under their bed. My brother had car magazines, but he had a JC Whitney catalog. And I used to go through there and look at the JC Whitney catalog. And I remember when my brother bought one of those cutout dumps from JC Whitney, and that was the coolest thing ever. And he took me around in that, and eventually he moved on with that, and he had a 64 Buick Skylark, but the one with the aluminum hood that was it was a limited edition thing that Buick had built for possibility of racing. So it was really a multiple stick shift car. It's a really badass car.
Where'd you go to high school?
Camelback High School.
Were you into cars in high school?
Oh yeah, I was. I was in cars from the age, really into cars from probably about the age of 7 or 8. Where we moved to by 24th Street Indian School wasn't far from the Goosick Speed Shop at 2110 East Indian School at the time. When they were located there, and like all kids are out riding their bikes and having a great time, and all of a sudden I hear this noise. What's that noise? And I'd ride towards the noise and it'd go away. And but I also knew from being in grade school, there was a guy named Tom Goosick that was there that always seemed to have cool decals and different things. And I didn't put it together until one day I actually stumbled upon the business and knew where the noise was coming from. So every time that they would fire their dragster up, before they went to the races, they'd fire it up and tune to make sure everything's right. I got pretty good. I could make it there before they shut the thing off. And I was there just looking over their shoulders, and I knew that was cool. When I was 5 years old, there was a racer named Fred Rathman who raced a 4-cylinder dragster with a Mickey Thomson engine in it, and that was a big deal back then. It was that was the first race car I ever sat in. I thought it was cool then, but I didn't realize how quickly I'd be sucked into it. And I'm glad I did.
First racetrack you went to?
First racetrack I went to would have been Phoenix Dragway with my brother-in-law John. And John Beck was another car guy that influenced me. He had a GTO, and he bought and sold cars and Mustangs, and he had everything fast. So John was the guy that took me to my first drag race there. Then my second place I went to was Orange County. We were over vacationing and went to a drag race there. And then about that time I hooked up kind of with the Goosick family, and they kind of let me tag along. And my mom says, as long as you don't get in the way, go have a good time. So I was off, and Beeline Dragway a lot of races at Beeline Dragway, and met a lot of great people there. And you just totally knew that I didn't have a car yet that I could race, but I knew I wanted to have one.
What was your first car?
My first car I owned was a 68 Mustang with a 289 in it. It was slow, but I bracket raced and had a great time. And put a set of headers on it, and of course all the things you do it, and skyjackers on the back, and big tires and wheels on the back, and it was my car. and it kind of defined me, and it just had a great time with it.
So that was, you raced for trophies and such?
We went to mainly beeline with that car, and it was try to get past first round. Rarely did I ever do it, but the trophy racing started when my buddy Tom Gusick had a C10 truck, standard cab short bed truck that he bought from his brother Bill, and we go out to Phoenix Drag when Tom was taking into photography big time back then. So we go out there and he'd take pictures all day long, and I'd race the truck. And I got pretty good at it and won a lot of trophies and actually won some money races there, and had a great time with it. So that was really even more so hooked into the racing thing. So I never, didn't have a really purpose-built race car till I was in my 30s. My own car. I worked on other people's cars, helped out. I knew what I wanted to have, knew what I was inspired by. Along the way, I worked for people like Bill Knobloch, and him and Joe Faulkner. They were big time into drag racing. Bud Yancey inspired me. He was a great, engine builder, and he knew a lot of things. And then I kind of I wanted to have a dragster. So we bought a. My first dragster was really just it wasn't fast. It was, I think it would run 10 seconds, 10/20s, and it was just for us to go out and have some fun. And I drove it a couple times, but I put my friend Jim White in it. Not the Jim White fuel racer, but Jim White, our local guy that does a lot of sheet metal for people in their cars and such. And we went racing with it, and we did pretty good. We won a couple races and won a big race up in Winslow one weekend, and knew we loved it. But at that point, I looked at the car and I wanted to go quicker, and the car really wasn't safe to go quicker in. It was a good 10-second car. So we got together with Bud Yancey, and Tom was working with Bud back then, and kind of picked the car I wanted, and looked at a Mark Williams car and looked at a Spitzer car and looked at a couple of different things, and they built me the initial chassis, and I know I didn't want to go super comp racing because I didn't like breaking out. So put together a 331, and we went comp eliminator racing, C dragster. Didn't have the money for a clutch, so we ran automatic. And back in the days, there was no weight brake for an automatic like there is now. But we did pretty well with the car. And it didn't win a race, but we held national records, and we go pretty far in division races, and just had a great time. And that hooked me then. I mean, I loved NHRA racing. I loved going on the road. Right? We raced Salt Lake City and Baylands, Fremont, and Bakersfield, and the old Vegas, a bunch of tracks. And we went out and did the tour for a couple of years and just had a great time with it.
You've had a lot of people drive your cars.
I've had people, guest drivers. How do you remember that? I've Jim Kelso. He got his license in my car. Dean Carter, even though the family had a dragster, his brother was driving the car, so Dean drove my car. And Dean's gone on to do very well in drag racing, but he broke in my dragster, and I've driven it myself. That car. It was a great car, and but Jim White was the main guy. Joe Faulkner drove it. Jim couldn't go to Indianapolis one year. He just couldn't get the time off, and so we wanted to go racing Indy, and Jim was okay with Joe driving the car. I wouldn't have done anything. Jim helped put the car together, did the body on it. It wouldn't have been complete without him, and helped with Johnny West as well. But Joe and I and his family, and we went back to Indy. Tyler Krause and his family was our crew guy, and we had a great time. And Joe drove it there, and I think he drove it one time at Pomona. And they're great people. We raced with a lot of great people. Bill Moropoulos was probably the guy that helped me the most, and we had an issue with the car. It was we're having a hard time tire shake. And the old adage was, what causes tire shake? Too much pressure, not enough pressure. All the things. So I went to him, and we ran against him. And Bill, took me aside and says, "Look, I'll help you, but I don't want you going and asking everybody else what their opinion is as well." And I looked at his card, it had a number 1 on it, and I go, "Okay," and I didn't. And he walked out, looked at the car, said, "Do this, this, and this," and it worked. So from that point on, so later on, we actually heard our engine at Pomona one time. He loaned me an engine. That's what I like about drag racing. You got good people around you, and Marv Ripes helped us with the transmission, and he was quite surprised with the first time we went to the Fall Nationals at Firebird, And we ran under the index, which was my main goal, was just to go out and run under the index. And after the race was over, Marv Ripes came up and says, "Send me the converter back." He says, "I wasn't sure with your combination or automatic, maybe you just would end up being like a 790 car, but obviously." So you gave us we ran like 8.0s, and sent the converter back, and our next race was in Fremont, and the car dipped into sevens for the first time, and we were definitely bit.
You were talking about the Gusick Speed Shop on Indian School. I believe you were involved in a speed shop in the 80s.
Well, first of all, my career in drag race in the performance industry is really thankful to the Gusick family, because they brought me in and they let me hang around, and they gave me my first job was working for them in their warehouse, and I worked alongside Vince Thomas, and Everett was the patriarch of the family. He was in the warehouse as well, and learned a whole lot, and met a lot of people in the industry. And Everett was a great man, and he came to me one day and says, "Look," he goes, "this business isn't such where you're going to get a gold watch at the end, and so I encourage you. I don't want you leaving, but if something else comes along, you should probably try it." So I left. I had an opportunity to go to work for Bill Knobloch at Performance Wheel and Speed, and I took that job, and I worked alongside Bob DeYoung, and Billy Knobloch was this like fantastic engine guy and car guy, and that helped me along the comp limiter deal. But I learned a lot there, and then Service Center, the old Service Center stores, they moved to town, and they offered me a job. And the deal with Billy was, they're with the competition between super shops, and the Gusicks were going strong, Lopers was going strong, super shops. If I said it didn't say already, they were strong. And then SC came to town to replace. They took over the old National Performance stores, and they came with a lot of inventory, so things slowed down at working for Knobloch, and kind of was in a situation where he didn't need me anymore. So took a job with Service Center and went and learned a whole lot more on a national basis, and then that led me to doing the best thing I've ever done, and probably the worst paying job I ever had, and that was owning my own speed shop. So it's Performance Plus. We used to be on 43rd Avenue in Dunlap, and best times though. I mean, working with people on their cars and their projects. They'd all come in, and they'd want to pick my brain, and they knew we ran that car, so they brought a lot of people in, filled a lot of nitrous bottles, sold a lot of parts, and then kept moving forward. And it was never really truly financed the way it should have been financed. And in the late 80s, we had the savings and loan debacle, where we had Lincoln Thrift and a bunch of the thrift banks. They started failing. At the same time, Palo Verde ended up, and we used to get a lot of customers from Palo Verde. So I ended up closing the store, and I kind of drifted for a little bit, and got an opportunity to go work for Mr. Gasket on the manufacturer side, and took off from there.
Actually, too, with being involved in a speed shop, you had the availability to meet a lot of the representatives from different companies, which helped you out with Mr. Gasket, who had such a wide variety of stuff and was so successful in being here from Phoenix also.
Well, one of the things about working for Mr. Gasket, they hired me Bob DeYoung got me the job there, my good friend Bob DeYoung, and they needed an administrative assistant. It didn't pay really well. I was getting ready to go back to school full time and get a degree, and I had this opportunity, and Kath and I talked about it. I said, I got to take this chance. And I went to work there, and they started seeing what I knew I sold a lot of headers, and I was working for the exhaust division. And back at the time, the brands that they had, Cyclone, Blackjack, and Thrush, they were good, but they weren't great. And I was able to tell them why I sold against them and what was better. And they listened to me a lot, and next thing I know, I was a product manager and a brand manager, and eventually the marketing manager for the exhaust division. But everything learned in the speed shop business from day one, working for the Gusick family, has applied to my working for manufacturers. The consumers are a wealth of knowledge. If you listen to people, they can tell you a lot of things. People come in and want to hear what they had to say and what they thought, because sometimes they'd be your next best idea.
I heard you mention a name in there, Kathy. Mm-hmm. Tell me about Kathy.
Oh, my life, first of all, my life would not be what it is without my wife, Kathy. She's an awesome lady. She knows exactly when to apply her boot to my backside when I start getting mopey. She makes sure that, she's my biggest fan. And she's together. We have two great daughters, Kristen and Emily, and with them, we have four awesome grandchildren. So I mean, God has blessed me in my life. I couldn't be any happier with the way my life has turned out. There's a lot of speed bumps along the way, and I joke with people saying that I would never want to run for public office because I wouldn't want my history brought up. But I'm really happy with the way things are. And none of it was really possible when I had my lowest of lows. Kathy was the one there that always picked me up and got me back on track.
She must have the same passion for racing as you do.
Oh, she does. We have NHRA TV, and we'll sit and watch the races, and she'll want to know who won and who's that, and we bet against each other who's going to win, and she has a great time with it, and she loves going to the races when she's not visiting the grandkids. So we got grandkids in Oregon and Idaho, so she flies more than I do anymore. I used to fly all the time. Now she's out doing her grandmother thing a whole lot, but she loves racing. The kids grew up around racing. They understand it as well. My daughter Kristen, she married into the guy at the Air Force, and they're stationed up in Idaho, and they're at the Boise up there, and they had a jet car race going on, and they're out with a bunch of pilots, F-15 pilots, because her husband flew with F-15s, and she kept answering questions I didn't know the answers to, and she said, "Dad, they're giggling like a bunch of little girls. They didn't understand it, and they just saw a car going on the track with a jet on it. They thought, oh, that'll be fun to do." But they're really amazed by her. And Emily was the same way. She took auto shop in school, and people would challenge her, "Well, what do you know?" And, "Well, my dad knows cars." "Well, what does your dad do?" And at the time, I was working for Holley Performance. My dad works for Holley, and all of a sudden, she got VIP status in her auto shop class. So it's cars have been my life. I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I still haven't figured that out.
Well, it looks like you're still pretty much involved in the car industry. What do you do now?
I'm a national sales manager for Center Force Clutches. They're located up in Prescott, Arizona. Built a great product, a great family-owned company. So many of our companies in the industry have been bought by venture capital groups, and they're still great brands, and they still build good products, but they kind of lose their touch with the people, because also it's a corporate mentality instead of a product-driven, results-driven, family-owned business. And Bill Hayes started Center Force Clutches back in the 80s, and he was previously owned Hayes Clutches, served out his non-compete and came up with the Center Force clutch with a unique clutch. Back then, nobody wanted to run a diaphragm clutch. They're always afraid of it. And Center Force came up with a device, the way they redesigned the diaphragm. Bill Hayes has been thinking, and now all the clutches you see out there, most every popular clutch is a diaphragm. That's what Bill Hayes did for Center Force. And they moved to Arizona, I would say early 90s, early 90s, and been friends with him ever since. And the opportunity came to, they needed a sales manager, and I wanted to not have to go back to Cleveland like for the previous company I was working for. I didn't want to have to go back as much, and so I took the job with them, and I really enjoyed it.
You mentioned drag racing as a family. With this job, you get to travel around the U.S. and you get to meet some of that family that you've been touched by throughout the years. How was that experience?
Well, what's interesting is Kathy, when I started first traveling a lot, I've traveled almost 2 million miles on American Airlines, America West, U.S. Airways, and then rolled in American Airlines. And she'd be worried if something were to happen for me out of town. And she started, coming with the SEMA show and meeting some of these people. And I go, in every town I go to, there's a performance person. There's somebody from the industry somewhere. And I'm never alone, even if I'm traveling alone, there's somebody there. And that's really the truth. I mean, there are people that you may not even know each other all that well, but if one of us, it's a close-knit family. It's a big, small industry. It's a $50 billion industry now plus, but still people know each other, and we all have the blessing to sell stuff. My friend John Menzer, used this phrase. He says we build parts that people don't need, and they're buying with the money they don't have to impress people they don't know. How much fun? It couldn't be more fun than that. We're all the same way. We all do the same thing with our passion.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's tremendous. Now, you also are very involved in the Arizona Racers Reunion with Bill Gusick. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, Bill and his family have been running the Arizona Drag Racers Reunion for over 25 years now, I believe. And it started off at their house, and because in the early days I traveled a lot, so I wasn't always in town for it. But going into COVID, just prior to that, I worked more locally, and I was able to help Bill out in, Bill's passion and his family's passion is to get people together. It used to be held at their house, and then we at their parents' house, and it was really a great deal. And it outgrew that, and all then we moved a couple of different places, and it kept growing, and it became more of a, it's not, it's Bill's passion, but Bill's passion is for everybody that's run race cars, drag cars, current, past, or people even interested in the future. And it's not like in the old days it used to be, you remember you were either a Coke or a Pepsi guy, or the local people, you were either a Criz or a Crux guy in AM radio. Well, in Speed Shop you're either a Loper or a Goosey guy in the Phoenix area. And there were rivalries, and that's long gone. Bill invites, there's no rivalries. Everybody, you're a racer, come, let's get together. And we've had some really, really, really great events. And the last few years we've been at the PKR track up there in North Phoenix, and they hosted us, so plenty of space, and we're able to grow. And we've got to the point where we've outgrown it again. And so this coming year we're making a move, and we've got the permission to say it now, but this year we'll be at the Bradford School of Driving. It'll be Easter weekend, like we did last weekend. It'll be the Saturday before Easter. We're kind of hesitant on that, but we found that a lot of people don't travel, or a lot of people from out of town come back to see their families that race, and they're able to attend and see their family at the same time. So we want a place that has paid parking, so we can we had a lot of show cars. People that show cars showed up at big time. It was a great car show in the race cars, so we'll have everybody basically on asphalt, and they have nice buildings for people to sit inside and rest from if it happens to be warm. It usually isn't, but and it's a great facility. And at the same time, some people on the west side have to travel a little bit farther, but great racers in the East Valley that haven't gone, and we're hoping to get our friends from Tucson to come up and join us. It's really close to Tucson. It's like 40-something miles closer to Tucson. So we're looking forward to having that. And you've been a great part of that. We brought you on as the announcer, and you do your thing, and it's just a lot of fun. And you make it's just a bunch of people. There's no money made on it. There's no, it's a nonprofit, or almost a minus profit type of thing to run, but it's done with passion. We're in the process now of hopefully bringing some people in for the next gen to run it. None of us are going to be here forever, but we don't have no plans to go anywhere. It's still Bill's event, and he puts a lot of sweat and tears into it, and blood, sweat, and tears, but we've got great volunteers. Our Glendale Timing Association Car Club, they come out and they work the gates, and Don Gainey helps stripe the parking lot, and we just a lot of help from a lot of people to make it happen.
What's cool too is that you bring, you mentioned speed shops. It was like this speed shop, that speed shop, and there wasn't much mingling in between. And the same with the reunion. You bring all the racetracks together, and there was a lot of rivalry between racetracks, and I think that's a great thing. People came down from the Winslow racetrack, of course, Speed World, and Tucson Dragway, and Firebird Motorsports Park, which, by the way, Radford Racing School's right there on the same property. Yeah. And so that's going to be a tremendous opportunity there to move to that facility, and I don't really feel that going across town is going to be a disadvantage.
I think it's a big advantage.
And plus, too, the Cackle Fest and an opportunity there to induct people into that Racers Hall of Fame, and that's what's really great about this whole program that you've and Bill have worked on about drag racing legends. There are so many people and that are so deserving of wanting to know their story. We want to know their story, and like to hear your background, and for me to have an opportunity to talk to the interviewer. But
it's a lot of fun. This was kind of Bill and I bouncing something off, but he really said it's really Bill's idea, and it would be cool if we could do this, and and I had done some videos in my involvement with SEMA and different things I've done, so I knew the importance of getting people on film. If we get the videos made, they last forever. And the missing link though was a videographer, and Mr. Mike Beakey stepped up, and this is a nonprofit deal as well, and this is all volunteer, and this part's the easy part. Doing the interview, sitting here, the filming's easy, but Mike then goes and probably puts another 2.5 hours in each video, and he's done a great job of producing our videos, and it would not be possible without Mike as well. And it's fun to do. I put a deal on our Facebook page about suggested people to who your legends were, and we got some names off of that. And I kept looking, and then I started, well, how about if I go to these people and look who their friends are on Facebook? And we were sitting there, we'd always have to be, oh, who can we think of to do next? Who can we think of to do next? And by the time we were done, we now have a list of at least almost 100 people that are possible people to interview. Phoenix, Tucson, some people from up north. And we want to keep doing this. We're not anywhere finished yet. We took a beating during the COVID time, and people didn't want to come out, and it was hard for us to get together. But this is our third week in a row of filming, and it's awesome. I get a great satisfaction. Red Greth and Mike Finley and Barry Norman and Thelma Gusick, and there's several people that are no longer with us. We're able to get on film and get their memories of Arizona drag racing, and that's what's really important to me.
Facebook page?
Arizona Drag Racing Legends.
All right.
And there's also Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame. So, pretty cool deal.
I'll tell you what, it's pretty cool being with you.
Thanks, Johnny. It's been great being with you. You're, like I said, longtime friend, and I kind of a little nervous being on this side of the camera and then this side of the lights, but you made it very comfortable, and I appreciate it.
Well, now everybody knows how cool you look,
Yeah.
Now Mike Beakey, is he going to be able to do the makeup thing?
Yeah. Big Mac, Dave McClellan, he always said he had a face for radio.
What do you see in the future of drag racing for Arizona?
Right now, I'm very excited. I know we have a few years at least to prove ourselves at Firebird Motorsports Park, and Tucson Drag Race seems to be going strong, and there's a number of no prep little operations running here and there. They pop up on different weekends and such. I'd love to see us have a track in northern Arizona, whether it be quarter mile or eighth mile. Like Phoenix is big enough to have a secondary track, but right now we're just blessed to have what we have, and we have some of the premier tracks in NHRA, Wild Horse Pass, Firebird Motorsports Park, long history drag racing. People kind of think of it as they've been here, think, oh, it's a relatively new track, but it's been around longer than Lyons ever was, or Orange County, and a lot of the other drag strips, famed drag strips, it's outlived them. And Phoenix keeps growing, and we need a drag strip. But right now, I bought a second race car when we weren't sure we were going to have a drag strip. That's how confident I was we're going to have a drag strip.
Hey, one other thing. Tell me about that race car.
Which one?
The one, you got the funny car now.
Well, it's an altered funny car. It's just a fun deal. We ran with the Western Fuel Alters, a group that Jim Maroney ran. We did a lot of racing in Tucson, Albuquerque, Summit, Wild Horse Pass. Have a great time. My buddy Brian Ashworth drove it for a long time, and he went through a liver transplant, which I know you're familiar with organ transplants, and so it kind of took him out of the seat for a while. And we've had a couple other people in there, but Dylan Winessy's driving the car now, an up and comer, and his funny car's not going to be ready till the fall, and we put him in there and just having a great time. It's the Twilight Zone fuel alter, and it's the Desert Rat funny car, and we did the Desert Rat in tribute to our friend Ron Sutherland, who was probably one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet in drag racing, and we truly miss him. And I just couldn't see not having a car. He was the first funny car guy that I knew as a kid. I mean, he was the first funny car racer that I could walk up and talk to, and he'd say, "How you doing?" Joke with me and have a good time. And he mentored me big time. Was a big friend. So we're proud to run the Desert Rat on the funny car body.
I'll tell you what. Who do you want to thank for your, like mentor for you? Who do you look back on?
Mentors. First of all, none of this is possible without God. Okay, having Jesus in my life has made a big difference in who I am and the person I really hope to be. But I've had great people. I had in the speed shop business, Everett, Gusick, Bill, Tom, brother Jim, sister Debbie, and mom Thelma. I was actually considered the other Gusick brother that didn't know I was around them so much, and they led the way. Bob DeYoung, definitely. John Mensler, our buddy John Mensler, who was just a great guy who loved people, and he turned his life around many years ago, and we used to fight like brothers and ended up being the best of friends. In the industry itself, there's people that are not from Arizona, but having the chance to working for Joe Rudka and Mr. Gasket, I learned a lot from him, and what to do and what not to do. And a guy named Gary Biggs, who was my main mentor that helped me on the manufacturer side. I've worked for some great companies along the way. John Levitz gave me a big opportunity at Arid Filter Company. We were there for 13 years and grew the company big time and did such a great job that K&N bought us. So I was, I've been very blessed. So I've been able to say in Arizona, live in Arizona still and work in the industry. It kind of grew up around me. But there are a lot of mentors. There are people. Bob DeYoung. Bob DeYoung was like, "Hey, pal, you'd sit me down and talk to me, make me feel comfortable with what was going on." Just peer-to-peer relationships. I've just been very blessed to have the right people come into my life at the right time, and I try to. I'm really thankful. I'm thankful you're still here. It wouldn't be the same without you, Johnny.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know you're doing a fantastic job with the Arizona Legends and, of course, with the Hot Rod Reunion, the Arizona Racers Reunion. And I know you're going to carry this on as long as you can. And it's a real treat because, Chris, you are truly one of the Arizona Legends.
Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it.